Rebels, and welcome back to my life, my very, very tired life. Yes, in a stunning turn of events, or perhaps not so stunning, I am once again completely exhausted. I spent most of the last week working on an absolutely insane schedule to complete a video project for my friends over at Sterling & Stone. The video is for a Kickstarter project that they're going to be launching next week called Story Shop. I'm actually super excited about it, which is part of the reason that I worked so hard on it. It is an app to help writers and storytellers in general create the worlds for their stories, establishing locations and characters and the outline for their stories. It's actually pretty cool. If you know me, then you probably already know Sterling & Stone, and you probably already know about the Story Shop app, but on the off chance that's not true, there's a link in the description where you can hear them go hear them talk about it, and also a link in the description where you can check out the Kickstarter page itself when it launches next Monday. So yeah, I've been working on that video on a super intense schedule, and I actually ended up quite liking it, and they liked it too, which is nice, I guess. I'm also working on new covers for the Nightblade epic, as I mentioned before, and that one is a little bit more of a toughie. I was having a hard time nailing exactly what I wanted on the covers. I communicated my initial ideas to the cover designer, and she came back with a cover, and I really hated it, like, a lot. But it was hard for me to tell whether I actually had problems with it or whether I was just kind of, like, so attached to the original covers that I was having difficulty seeing the new cover for what it really was. Which is, of course, a high possibility because, if you'll remember, I designed the original covers myself. So I showed the cover to some other people, and they pretty much all really liked it. Like, almost all of them, one after another, they were just like, dude, this is so much better than the old one! Which made me feel great, I can tell you. But I refused to accept this. I was so sure, I knew, I was positive that the new cover was worse, and I had legitimate reasons for disliking it, no matter what other people said. So I went to someone who has a lot of graphical talent himself. He's an artist and a cartoonist, and he's done a number of book covers in his own right, and he's also one of the most cynical people that I know, and he's very honest, and I knew if he didn't like the cover, he would tell me. He would not try to sugarcoat it at all. He'd happily tell me how bad it was. For those of you who know who he is, I'm talking about David Wright, and Dave loved it. He thought it was great. Well, as great as Dave ever finds anything. So I had to admit defeat, but it was really hard to accept the fact that I was not seeing the cover honestly and accurately. I had to, like, exert actual mental effort to move past that roadblock and see it for what it was. And that, of course, is the way bias works. We never think it exists. We can even analytically understand the concept of bias and the mechanics of it, but we always think of it as something that happens to other people, not to us. As an artist, you want to uphold a certain level of quality. You have to make sure that the work that you're creating pleases you. That's your first standard, and you shouldn't deviate from that. But when it comes to your art, especially when it comes to anything collaborative around your art, such as a book cover or an editor or anybody else who is helping you with your creation, you have to keep very self-aware about, like, what you actually dislike and what is actually technically wrong and what you just have a particular mental attachment to. We all have specialties and knowledge bases and life experiences that shape the way that we think about everything else. For example, if you're like a bit of a grammar stickler, you might like a certain way of speaking without realizing that the actual average reader finds that language extremely, like, obtuse and difficult to understand and not at all enjoyable. If you're heavily into historical facts and trivia, you might feel the need to include all this detail in your book that just, like, doesn't need to be there because nobody but you likes reading that stuff. And in my case, a little bit of skill in graphics and Photoshop made me detest a cover that actually was really good and made people want to read the book more. So we are still working on that cover, but I should be able to show it to you guys very soon. Keep an eye out for that. I will, however, be showing it to my patrons on my email list first. So if you're not on my email list, there's a link in the description where you can go do that. And if you're not a patron, but you want to be and help support the YouTube channel, there's also a link in the description where you can do that. Thank you very much for watching. An extra special shout out to my supporters on Patreon who make all of my YouTube videos possible, especially my sponsors, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye! No, I don't like this cover. I don't like it at all. What don't you like about it? Well, for one thing, there's no camel on it. There's no camel in the book. It's symbolism!